Podcast, we have a very special guest joining us on this segment on Republic TV. Captain Libby Weiss, who's the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson. You're in the middle of a conflict, Captain Libby, but you've taken the time out to speak to Republic TV. First of all, appreciate you taking the time out and speaking to us. Tell us about the situation today. We saw the barrage of rocket attacks from Hamas last evening as well.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It is a very tense situation. We are just about a week into this conflict. And as of now, as of today here, 12:20 Israel time, Hamas has launched under 3,000 rockets towards Israelis, 600 of which were launched just yesterday. A large number of Israelis in some of Israel's biggest cities spent all of last night in shelters. I myself spent a good portion of the night in a shelter here in Tel Aviv. But the situation is very tense. Just yesterday, an innocent civilian was killed when a rocket landed in a city not too far from here in Tel Aviv. So, of course, the situation is a very tense one and changing rapidly.
Captain Libby, it's not easy to fight terrorists who are hiding in civilian areas, in densely populated areas, and we're seeing the kind of reports from both sides. Now, how are you tackling this issue? How are you locating these terrorists in civilian areas?
Well, you're right. Certainly it is a challenge, and we know that Hamas intentionally hides among, next to, under the civilian population, the very densely packed civilian population within the Gaza Strip. So we really rely on very sensitive intelligence information. And of course, we make every effort possible to limit the impact on civilians in the Gaza Strip. We call civilians and ask them to vacate as soon as possible. We send text messages, and we really make every effort possible, even sometimes if it's to our operational disadvantage. But we have no desire to impact or to in any way hurt civilians within the Gaza Strip, clearly in contrast to what Hamas is doing here in Israel.
Yeah. You spoke about 3,000 rockets in the last 24 hours itself and overnight. How many of these rockets actually hit the intended targets, and how many did the Iron Dome thwart?
Yeah, so the 3,000 from the start of the conflict, just 600 yesterday. Really, we're very fortunate that Iron Dome has really been performing marvelously over this conflict. Iron Dome has intercepted about 90% of those rockets. But of course, it's not 100%, and there have been several direct hits of rockets on civilian areas in the last week. So there was homes in communities in Israel's center, not far from Tel Aviv, that were directly hit, communities and homes in the south that were directly hit, and of course civilians that have been killed and that have been injured because of these rockets.
Captain Libby, we've been looking at those pictures and those videos of buildings being brought down. I'm just playing that video out for our viewers as well as you speak. Yesterday, we saw one of those buildings being brought down. Of course, Israeli forces and the military is giving people advanced warnings. We know about that. And then targeting those buildings. Now, it's a challenge, like I said, when they're hiding in civilian buildings. How are you locating these buildings, marking them out, and bringing them down? Why are you having to bring them down, if you can tell our viewers?
Sure. Well, I can't go into the operational specifics exactly, but I can certainly, you can trust me when I say that there is very rigorous, intensive intelligence methods that are used to specifically identify those sites. And it's important to note that these are sites that are used by Hamas. These are sites that are critical to their function as a terror organization, are critical to to what they're doing here, to their onslaught against the Israeli population. And we have to, of course, strike those to eliminate Hamas's capabilities of being able to launch rockets. That's the sort of number one task that we have in the military, and one that I think is a very reasonable task that any military would do in a similar situation.
Tell us about the metro and the underground operations. We saw the videos that the IDF had tweeted out. What are you finding in these metro and underground tunnels?
Yeah, so in the last 2 days, the IDF has been striking really a strategic asset for Hamas, which is this underground metro that is used by Hamas only, underground, and it's really their underground tunnel network that allows them to move equipment, allows them to move terrorists from location to location. It is really a strategic asset for them. And in the last 2 days, we have been striking that, really trying to eliminate their ability to move people, to move equipment, and to do what it is that they are doing. So it was really a very important target that we hit. And again, I think it's very indicative of what Hamas is doing in the Gaza Strip, which is creating a whole network that they are using for terror purposes underground and under the civilian communities in the Strip.
Captain Libby, how safe are the people of Israel, especially in the border towns? Because, you know, what's also happening, and we've been seeing, there are two narratives. The global media narrative, of course, one narrative is that, you know, they're trying to project Israel as someone targeting civilians even. But we know that there are two narratives, and of course, you're going after terrorists, right? Now, how safe are civilians in border areas in both sides?
Yeah, excellent question. So, I mean, the civilians here in Israel who are on the border are not at all safe. They have 15 seconds, 15 seconds, once the siren is sounded, to run into a shelter. And that is the only thing that they can do to protect themselves when there are a barrage of rockets that are firing and raining down on them. You know, and I would ask your viewers to imagine 15 seconds. Imagine what you could do with 15 seconds. You hear a siren. You need to get out of your car. You need to run and get your children. You need to figure out where there's a shelter near you. I mean, 15 seconds is a very, very short amount of time to be able to safely get into a shelter. Many people in the southern communities in Israel have just been essentially living in these shelters. They haven't been able to leave. They're sleeping there. They're eating there. They're really living in these shelters. This is not a way for anybody to live. And of course, as the military, we will do anything, and legitimately will do anything to enable people here in Israel South and in the center to go back to normal life and to not have to run to a shelter, whether it's 15 seconds in the South or 90 seconds here in Tel Aviv. But we'll do anything possible to help them resume normal life.
Yeah, and a couple of couple more questions with you. Now, we saw that one Indian national lost, her life, and we spoke to another,
yes.
Some of our Indians who are living there in border towns especially, very, very positive, very, very, they know that they are safe in Israel, and they had a lot of good things to say about the Israeli Defense Forces as well. What's your message to them and all the people who are relying on you to keep them safe?
Well, my message would be that we understand the weight of that responsibility. We are doing everything possible, operating day and night, to keep Israelis and everybody living in Israel safe. They, of course, are here. We see it as our responsibility to, of course, protect them as well. And we are doing everything that we can. There's a very strong motivation and belief in what we are doing. And we know that we're doing this to keep our friends and our loved ones and our community safe.
Yeah. Okay. One last question. The entire world is looking at your Iron Dome system, and they're talking about it, on how it's been the single most effective shield for Israel, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, it is a technological marvel. I would almost say it's a miracle. The situation here on the ground without Iron Dome would have been a very different one. There would have been hundreds of casualties here on the Israeli side because, again, Hamas, the whole purpose of what Hamas is doing is to target Israeli civilians with those rockets. So we are, of course, very thankful for how well Iron Dome is performing. But we understand, again, that it isn't perfect, and we're doing everything possible to stop that rocket fire so that people can go back to normal life here.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time out in the middle of a conflict to speak to Republic TV. Captain Libby, India stands with Israel, and all the very best. I won't call it a war, but you're in the middle of a conflict. I'll let you go at this point. Thank you for speaking to Republic.
Thank you.
Captain
Thank you
Libby.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.